We are going to try to get this started on time. I want to welcome everybody to the second session of the virtual Site Coordinator Symposium being live from Long Beach, California and around the state. So we want to welcome you to this. If you are here for Make Your Staff the Star of the Show, you are in the right place and we welcome you. This session is going to be focused around helping site coordinators to realize the importance of utilizing their frontline staff. There will be a focus on what tasks can and should be delegated and why, and an open discussion on current successes, struggles that site coordinators are having, and we'll end with highlighting the benefits of inspiring staff to grow. We're great and happy to have Peter Alton and Jasmine Jones here to lead the presentation. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they are out of the San Diego and Imperial County areas of San Diego. So Peter and Jasmine, welcome, and away you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Bill. And welcome in, everybody. Well, I'm going to, since you all are here and we're ready to get started, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll just jump right in. All right, so now are you all just seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. That's exciting. All right. So with that being said, I know Bill already introduced ourselves or introduced us, but we're going to go through and introduce ourselves real quick. My name is Peter Alton. I am the training coordinator at ARC Experience. We are located in San Diego, Los Angeles, and the Imperial Valley, but Jasmine and I work out of San Diego and the Imperial Valley primarily. I have been in the after school field for 3 years now, going on 4. I started as a site coordinator and was a site coordinator at a middle school for 2.5 to 3 years before I started in this new role of being the training coordinator for our South region. And that's kind of who I am and where I'm at. And I'll let Jasmine introduce herself.
Hi, I am Jasmine Jones. I also work for ARC Experience out of the San Diego office. I have been in the after school field for about 13 years. I've done every role that your staff can imagine. And then I've been a site lead and various positions throughout administration. I've worked in multiple counties. I see people that I recognize from other past positions. So it's exciting that we're all here together to work with things that will help our staff, help our kids.
So before we jump in, I just would like to make a couple of things, make you all aware of a couple of things. This is going to be an interactive session. So if you have the ability to have your camera on, we do welcome that. We are going to do a lot of, we're going to do a couple of breakout rooms, give you all an opportunity to discuss with each other, and then come back to the big group and share with us as well. So just let us know if you have any questions throughout the time. Go ahead and jump in the chat, or, I take no offense to you all interrupting me. I will talk fast and go through things, but I want you all to be able to take away from this what you want to take away. So please don't hesitate to let us know if you have any other questions or any other needs from us. But I would just like to ask you all to be open to participating, open to sharing throughout the session, and be engaged with your peers. Does that sound good to everybody? All right, perfect. Well, we're going to start with some interaction here from you all. And we're going to ask some questions of you. I'm just making sure I can see as many of you as possible on our screen on this end. And we're going to ask you all to raise your hand to the following, if these following questions apply to you. So the first question that we are going to ask is, can you raise your hand if you regularly feel overwhelmed at work? So you can just use your virtual hand, raise your hand to either one. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands here. All right. You can go ahead and lower your hands for that one. Now, can you raise your hand if you are taking work home off the clock? Again, seeing a lot of hands here. All right, perfect. You can go ahead and lower those hands. All right, and one more question. Raise your hand if you worry about your site when you are not there. So if you're going to Symposium in person and you have school on Friday, are you worried about it? Are you not? Are you leaving tomorrow and you're stressed out? Okay, yeah, seeing a lot of hands. All right. So hopefully the goal is by the end of today to give you some tools and some skills to help alleviate some of those stresses, alleviate some of those problems that you may be having, and make your job a little bit easier on you. But for right now, I'm going to, in the chat, put in, oh, nope, that's not the right link. Hang on. I got to get I have a link for a Jamboard, which I'm going to have you all use because we're going to send you all to breakout rooms.
And then we'll share out.
How was that for everyone? Good, bad? Feel like, do you feel seen? Do you feel like you have you're not alone in your struggles?
Good. These are very common. And that's why this is what we chose. So it's so common. Okay, awesome. Welcome back. Does anybody want to share some common themes that they had come up in their breakout room about any of the questions?
I think for our team, one of the common themes of why we don't want to leave work, or what makes us, I forgot the exact question, but what makes us nervous about not being at work is discipline and having to deal with students who may have behavior problems, and not having your presence there is a challenge sometimes.
All right, that's understandable. What are some other things that people were hearing in their groups?
In room 7, we talked about the realities of staff turnover. It's not, I mean, we always love to have the same staff consistently throughout the year, but the truth is you lose staff, you gain new staff, and there's not always the time to prepare them to be alone without you. So
yes, once again, common in after school, and it's been common for, I've been in after school for 13 years. It's been common for all 13 years. So it's something that, you know, it's difficult. It's hard. We understand. What's something else we were hearing?
I'll go and
share out.
Oh, you can go.
I'll just share out my observation is that I didn't raise my hand for the feeling overwhelmed at work and worrying about my site because I make myself available off the clock. That is my balance, and that's the way that, you know, if I know I get a few minutes on a Sunday to respond to a couple fluff emails or just stuff, it makes my day a lot easier on Monday. And I know that I don't have to be sitting in my office or at sites all the time when I know that they can call me and connect with me anytime that they want, for any problem solving or issues or whatever it is. That makes me not feel overwhelmed, and that makes me confident in my sites, that I don't have to be on campus at all times for all of my sites.
Okay. So you've you found personal solutions to help you manage the other two by making yourself available. Okay. I believe Autumn, you also were wanted to share something out.
Yes, I was in room 6, and we had talked about a lot about the feeling of having to do almost everything, having to multitask and really be there for our staff, and kind of as if there's like a lack of training within our staff. This was just us connecting, and I put down feeling like the job will only get done if I'm there, and then being too dependent on. I feel like our staff really depend on us being there in program and really supporting them in our day-to-day. And then when we're not there, the absent, I feel like it throws everybody kind of off. But that's
the perfect, like that was like a perfect summary for we're about to move into. The purpose of the session is really to make it so they're not so dependent on you, and you can start giving them that authority, so that once every time there's an issue, they're not like, I can't be the one to do this. I need someone else to handle it. Because the majority of people that have been site leads and have moved up, you've been in their position before. And so you understand, and you don't want them to feel alone. But you also need to make sure that we're getting them ready personally for their own development. And so that's what we're going to work on.
All right, so we're going to reshare our screen. Thank you everyone for sharing. And we're going to move on to the next topic, which is delegation.
Awesome. So delegating, right? What is a way that we can stop taking work home is by delegating, right? We're going to make sure that it's getting done during those work hours. What's a way to make sure that we're not feeling so overwhelmed? We're going to spread those tasks out throughout. So delegation is a really big theme. It's also a really difficult theme that a lot of people deal with, because when you delegate something, it's no longer in your hands. And then a lot of people come back and are like, well, I want to make sure that it gets done right. It's so much easier if I just do it myself. We're going to go over some strategies to help with that. So when we delegate things, it can be your really small daily tasks, or it could be one of your larger tasks. It could be anything from helping to prep before the kids get out. It could be anything to inputting attendance, double checking, signing the kids out at the end of the day, handling behavioral issues, right? How often do our staff send us somebody, a child, when there's been a behavioral issue, and you just get the child and you make the decision for what happens next? But how often do we look at our staff and say, well, what do you think we should do? And start putting them in that position and make those decisions within reason, because we do know there are those one-off situations where you do have to be the person that makes that last call, but putting them in those power positions. Also with delegation, it provides a growth opportunity for your staff. We do have high turnover in after school. A lot of the reason for turnover is that there isn't growth opportunities, right? We have our set assignments, our set staffing, and they feel like, well, I'm in this position, I've been in this position for a year or 2 or 3, and I don't see myself moving up or gaining new skills. People love to feel valued. I love to feel valued. I'm sure that we've all felt valued by somebody within our organizations, and that's why we continue to stay. Yes, sometimes we get kids that are in college and they're just with us for the time that they're in school, which is also great, but they sometimes come back later, and they come back in different positions, and we want to help give them those positive, like, growth opportunities, so that when they think about their time in after school, it's a positive thought. It's something that they enjoyed. It's something that they do want to come back to. Also with delegation, it's still our responsibility. So yes, we send it off to somebody, we teach them how to do it, they do it. We want to make sure that it gets done right. because at the end of the day, you're the person that's responsible for it. And so one of the ways that we can do that is if I have something due on a Friday and I've delegated it out, I'm not going to ask that to come back to me on Thursday or Friday. I'm going to ask for it Tuesday or Wednesday so that I can take a look at it and send it back to them and say, hey, let's work on this a little bit differently. If things come back to you and they're not perfect or they're not the way that you would like them to be done, you don't always have to also be the person to fix it. And so that's what we're going to go through with delegation and how it's beneficial. Are there any questions?
If there are any questions, you can put them in the chat or come off mic. If not, that's totally fine. Perfect. Well, the other thing, along with delegation that is super important and is going to help you all, is the idea of empowering your staff. And so with this idea of empowering your staff, it's understanding we hired all of these people for a reason, right? Yes, I know sometimes there are those times where you're like, I need a body, and they're going to be good enough to get the job done. But for the most part, I think when we go and we interview someone and we hire someone, they are there for a reason. And not only are they there for a reason, but each one of our staff brings a different skill set to our team. And it's really important for us to not only recognize that these staff are bringing different skill sets, but that we are doing our best to utilize those skill sets. So we're going to have people who are super good with art. We're going to have people that are super good with sports. We're going to have people that are super good with this, people that are super good with all of the different aspects in our program. Put them in positions to succeed, but also allow them to help you with the things that should be their job, right? I'd be curious to know how many of you all do your own, like you are the one who puts together lesson plans, you are the one who puts together all of like the curriculum that they're doing and all of that. Okay, so there are some of you. I would say for the most part, you have staff that are able to put together curriculum. They are able to put together content. They are able to put together things that maybe they don't have the resources to plan it all out. Or maybe they don't think in a way, like in their head, they're like, no, I don't have that resource, or I don't have that ability. But you ask them what they're interested in. You ask them, hey, the students have expressed this interest. You have said that you know about this. Like, do you think we could work together to put something together? They are going to be the ones who feel like, oh, wow, no, I am interested in this. I do know about this. I think that'd be really cool to do for the students. When you put them in positions to succeed like that, it's super successful, and it helps them again to feel important, but it also is something that should be their job, right? They are there for I always told my staff when I was a site coordinator that they were there for the students and I was there to support them, right? As a site lead, you are there to support your frontline staff, and your frontline staff is there to support the students. So if they are there working on what the students are doing every day, that's supporting the students, right? That's supporting the program. That's within their scope of what their job and role should be. I'm seeing in the chat, Latoya, you said sometimes it feels like all we have is an adult body. So how do we manage the program and manage the staff to see their skill sets and use them within the program? I think one of the best ways to kind of figure out what it is that they're interested in is, even if you are doing it in a 10-minute prep meeting every single day, have some sort of team building question, or you instead bring the skill set. So they may not be telling you what their skill sets are, right? But if we're able to observe them in different situations, we're going to start to see, all right, this person's a much better communicator with the students when it comes to discipline than this person. Or this person, when I see them running these activities, like they bring a really great energy to it. I bet they might be able to plan some of these activities. Or you're going to hear them talk about shared interests with students. And then you're going to say, hey, I heard you talking about this with students. Would you be willing to put an activity or a club together on that? I can work with you on that, but would you be willing to put some ideas together with me? I think sometimes the key is we can't expect them to necessarily do it all, but we have to let them know that we trust them enough to do it. I think a lot of times we feel like
welcome zone 52,
a need to kind of oversee every little aspect. And potentially if we are overseeing every aspect, they're feeling like they aren't able to thrive in that area or to take a next step in that area because they're like, well, they don't trust me enough to do it. Tammy, did you have a question?
I just wanted to add on what we practice over where we're from is side-by-side coaching. So it's hard to relinquish responsibility to others, right? Because we have that mindset of like, I want to make sure it gets done right. I want to make sure that I don't have to go back and forth with the edits or the timelines, or they need it now. Everything's urgent, right? But with us, we try to practice that side-by-side coaching so that we have to remember there's different types of learners. And so our staff, not only building on the strengths like you're saying, but also remembering some are hands-on learners, some are auditory learners, some are visual learners. So if we tell them, they may not understand it. And that's where the frustration may come in, because we're trying to just say, well, I already told you, or I told you again, or let me explain it again. And then they're not getting it. But if they are hands-on with trying to do it as you're showing them, or, it's just like the kids, I do, we do, you do, really practicing that, then I feel like sometimes we might get a little bit further, and that you can coach in real time so that the next time they could do it on their own. And then maybe we might build some, get a little bit further that way.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing. I think one thing, so two things that come out of that for me. Number one, I am sure that in here, some of you are like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but I don't have time to walk through my program with my staff because I'm busy getting everything else done. That's hopefully where the delegating some of those tasks or empowering your staff to take on some of the other tasks will help you to have that freedom and that time to be able to, this is where that last bullet comes in. When you allow them to step up, you are able to take a step back. And that's something that is super important, is when you delegate and you're helping them to, maybe they don't even know that they have a skill set. Maybe they don't know that something is a strength, but you can see it in them. You identify that strength for them. You empower them to utilize that strength. We do those things. That allows them to take a step up, and then allows you to take a step back and do those coaching, utilize that extra time that you have to coach and work with them. But the other thing I want to say is sometimes we don't have the ability to coach in program. Like we're working with checkout, or we're pulled away to go do disciplinary things, whatever it may be. Always have a process of, if you assigned something to someone or you're working on something new, check in with them at the end of the day and say, hey, how did everything go? How did that feel? Was there anything that you need my help with? Is there anything you're so confused on? If you provide them those spaces, then it allows them to not only reflect on it and kind of self-reflect, but then maybe if they do have extra questions, they can ask you in that moment, and then you can walk them through it. Christian, I see your hand up, and then LaToya. Christian, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that. Something I wanted to say that was setting goals with them, I think is a really powerful way to empower them and kind of speaks to that. Sometimes there aren't ways they can directly move up in the organization, but if we can find points of growth, achievable points of growth that we can at the end of the year look back and say, hey, this is what you wanted to accomplish. How did we get towards that? It can be really powerful and helpful for them to empower them to step up in other moments because they did achieve these things. So I make a point to set goals with my with my staff on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis at the very least, so that we can go back and reflect with them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Something similar that I did was I used a like a self reflection or a self-assessment tool. So I asked them how they felt they were doing in different areas of program. But then I also in there, so I had them review, like self-assess. And then there were questions of, how do you feel like I'm supporting you? Is there anything else that I can do to provide you help? What are your goals? Is there any way I can help you achieve those goals? That way you kind of know, you get to know your team, you get to know your staff a little bit. Latoya, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been really good lately at like trying to delegate certain things. At least feel like I have been. So recently I went and I stepped back because there was a few kids that were just like kind of out of control, but I stepped back to see if the staff would intervene. And in the process of the staff intervening, they're mad at me because I didn't jump in and take control of the situation. So what do you do when you have staff that are like that, where they expect you all the time to do everything and they're just basically that body in that room?
I got you. Did they handle the situation well?
They kind of just was like, can you go to Miss Latoya? So it's kind of like I still had to take over the situation, but I was trying to like I normally do a take 5 when my staff come in, and I let them know like, hey, today we're gonna focus on attention getters. You guys are gonna run an attention getter at certain times of the day. And then they kind of like, so lately, because I have brand new staff, they kind of act like they didn't hear what we said in that take 5. So when the time actually comes, they're like, oh, she wasn't serious. And then when I step back, it's kind of like, oh, you literally put me on the spot. And I don't want them to feel like they're getting put on the spot, but it's also their job. So how do you find, I guess, that balance?
So in those moments, you have to let them step up, and maybe you have to explain that to them in words like, hey, remember we talked about at the beginning, I gave you that space so that you could do it because that's part of your development. Like, I want to see you grow. I think you're great at this. I think you're great here. I think that this is something that you're more than capable of. But also, sometimes you need to explain to them, I want the kids to behave better for you than they do for me. I don't want their behavior to change just because I walk in a room. I don't want the environment to shift just because they hear me coming. And we've all heard, they're coming. And there's nothing worse, right? And I feel like shifting their mindset like that, like, oh, you want me to know. Let them know, hey, if the situation is too much, you feel like, wow, this has really gone above and beyond, you can send them to me. But sometimes you can go through, and we've talked about this, and I've done in the past, where with the behavior guidance list, there was one side of the list. If the kids do this, then that is something for you to handle, versus if the kids do this, then these are the things that warrant you sending them to me. If you haven't tried something yet for this one, don't send them to me. If you're having a consistent issue and you need to problem solve, what's a quick consequence? How do I handle it in the moment during your take 5? Then go for it. And a lot of times staff are just young and they have no idea. And they feel like everything is, that you're going to go to the site lead, you're going to go to the whoever. I'm going to tell your parents. But what they're teaching the kids is, I don't have to listen to you until this other person comes in. And if they don't understand that, then they're going to keep doing it. So having those honest conversations with them about, this is why I'm doing this. This is why I'm taking a step back. I'm not going to step in. I'm going to let it happen. I'm going to let them have that awkward moment where they're supposed to be an attention getter. The snack is over. They're supposed to go to homework. And the kids are like, sometimes those awkward moments build character, and they have to happen.
Perfect. And then Brad, I see your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that Christian's in this meeting, because I was thinking, I actually had the opportunity to visit his site yesterday. We're a TA provider, and then we help support for the grants here in San Diego. And Christian not only has like a great handle on his staff, but I think one of the things to like really touch on is that he's also a training site for his district. And that some of the like understanding too is that being at so many different districts and schools, like I'm meeting people who are in like lead positions who are 19, this is their first job, and they've been on the site for a week. And they're expected to manage parents and manage student behaviors and all of this. And I think one of the things that Christian's district is doing really well, National School District, is they're leveraging those training sites. And so before the staff are getting sent out to, you know, a lead who maybe is newer or doesn't have that experience yet, they're spending like a week or however much time with that experienced staff and onboarding that way. And that is huge. In the district that I worked in before, that is honestly what saved us, because we didn't have time to like really onboard. So we had 2 training sites that did all of that for us.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's great to hear that those things are in place. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. I do want to let Yvette, I did see your comment in the chat. Hopefully that's something we can kind of discuss towards the end. We do need to move on to the next part. I can also give you my email. We'll give you all our contact information. You can feel free to reach out for some of those things as well. But what we're going to do right now is we are going to put you back into those breakout rooms in just a moment. And we are going to have you all discuss areas where you can delegate or empower your staff. Take the time to reflect on it, think about it. But then also be honest with yourselves. Maybe you've thought about it and you're like, I can delegate this task. Why haven't you already? What are you concerned about? So maybe it's like, hey, I don't need to be the one doing the attendance every single day. I don't have to do the scan-in process. I could have staff do it. I know I can. Why aren't you? What is the hesitation? Maybe it's, I can have my staff do the lesson planning. I can have my staff do the newsletter or whatever it may be. Why are we not doing that? What is preventing us from doing that? So you all are going to have a good opportunity, about 10 minutes this time, to go into your breakouts. And we are going to, in just a moment, I will open up all the rooms. And like I said, you'll have 10 minutes to discuss this time. And then when you all come back, we're going to do a big group discussion. So if you have questions of like, hey, this is something I want to do, but I don't know how, please make sure that you bring those questions back to the big group, because we're going to have about a 20-minute time to discuss that afterwards. All right. So we're going to go ahead and open up the rooms, and we will see you all in about 10 minutes.
I think most of the people in my breakout aren't there. There was like one, and then the person that just came back in had joined, but yeah, I was talking for a while, but then I was like, hello, and I saw the screen, but there wasn't anybody there.
If you'd like to share in the big group,
please don't hesitate.
Yes.
All right, y'all. So as you come back in, just go ahead and give us like some sort of acknowledgement of how that was for you, if that was a positive experience, if that was helpful, if you had some good brainstorming.
I'll share. I was listening between the conversation of 2 individuals actually, and I didn't really talk as much, but just listening to them and them being really experienced. And again, one of the ladies that were talking, I can't remember her name, sorry, but she said that she's been like in the programs for like multiple years, and it's just an encouragement that things never do really get easy, and things will never be easy. Everything will be challenging, but it is possible. Mm-hmm. So that was really encouraging to me. Like, it's possible. It is going to be challenging, but it's possible. But yeah, that's all I really want to say.
No, yeah. Every every set of staff is going to come with their own challenges. Every group of kids are going to come with their own challenges. Every site in itself comes with its own challenges, right? Maybe the school site is not as welcoming as you would like. Maybe the space isn't as capable of holding your kids or providing what you need to be able to do the activities that you would like. So it doesn't get easy. We just learn to adapt a little bit better and problem solve a little bit better, and work with others. So it's always a good time. It's a job that never gets boring.
Yes, that is true. So as you all come back, I welcome you all to share any questions or anything that was coming up in your groups. But I would also love for you to, in the chat, just put some of the things that were coming up of tasks that you can delegate, or some of the tasks that you would like to delegate. And then maybe we can highlight some of those. But if someone would like to share about something that was coming up in their group, that would be great.
I'd like to share from our group. Christian kind of started the conversation about making sure that our staff are given the opportunity to choose their own club, like curriculum, and choose what they are passionate about, to help give them some autonomy and buy-in in those curriculums. So being able to delegate that out, making sure that when you do delegate it, those people have passions for those things that you're asking them to create curriculum for.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing, Crystal Joe. Good to see you. But I think that that's such like a huge thing, right? Sometimes we look at staff and we're like, hey, you're going to do this game. Hey, you're going to do this activity. Hey, this is the club we're going to run. And they're like, I hate arts and crafts. I can't draw a stick figure. So you want me to go lead this club? No, it's not like, but they have to, because that's what they were told to do, and they're going to go do it. But you know what kind of energy they're going to bring to those students? All right, so now we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And they're not going to be excited about it. They're not going to bring the level of energy and the attention to detail that those students deserve. I think you all hit a great point when you're saying, like, ask them what they're passionate about, but also ask the students what they're passionate about. I think for so many times we're like, oh, the kids are going to love this. And then we throw it at the wall, and then they look at us and go, that was dumb. That was boring. And we all sit there and we take it personally because, like, we worked hard on that. But at the same time, take a step back, listen to the kids, let them tell you, and then let your staff say, once you get that list of topics, then give it to your staff and say, hey, here are all the things that the kids said they want. Who would like to lead these things? Because then there's buy-in, there's ownership of it, and we know the students are interested. Brad, I saw you had your hand up for a second. Did you want to share anything?
I was just going to highlight that my passion is fine arts, and I like, no one asked me that when I started and I was a lead like 15, 16 years ago. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to like realize that I could really like develop that into like a program with my students. And then kind of like you guys mentioned, we had been given like an art curriculum that was books. The books were great. The projects were terrible. It was like color by numbers. And it was just not, as someone who is like an art fanatic, it was not up to my par. And so I sat down with my students that first year, and we went online and we found like Dick Blick, who has lesson plans, and a bunch of others. And I let them like pick projects. And then I basically just funded those projects, and like we did them. And then we kind of built on that year after year to the point where like our second year, we were doing art shows and stuff like that. So I think like figuring out their passions, that's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Christian, I'll get to you in just a second. I just wanted to look over in the chat. And I see, Chase, you're saying that you're trying to get your staff to break out of their shell and engage more. And I think that that's great. What did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely trying to get my staff to engage more with the students. Like, I have certain staff that is definitely engaging. I see that they're interacting with the kids and, you know, getting into it, and they know their kids. But I have some that are just like, they'll facilitate, but when they're having the kids do the activity, they're not like going up to certain like students like, oh, hey, like, oh, what's this? Or like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, they're not engaging, they're just watching. And I give my certain, you know, my program leaders certain things that they like to do with their lesson. It's like, hey, I know you're really into this, so here, like, you go, like, let's try this out for the day. And I go observe, and there's not much engagement. I'm just like, and I feel like I'm a broken record with them every Monday when I have my meetings with them. Like, okay, so let's go ahead, have more engagement with the students. Let's go ahead and get out there and be the best you. And, you know, we're here for the kids, and, you know, let's get to know them a little more, and let's get to know them more. And some of them are like, oh, like in the beginning, they're like, oh, I'm kind of shy. And I'm like, I know you're shy, but you know, we've been here for a while. Let's try to, like, you know, get to know our students that we have almost every day, the same students every day.
So I think a couple of different things for that. One, just, you know, obviously we're aware of who our staff are and what their personalities are. And so trying to put them into positions to succeed, but sometimes they're not gonna take that, right? Like we're giving them the opportunity. We're saying like, hey, you could be really good at this. Like, you can talk to them. It's okay. And they don't receive that necessarily. I think it's really important for you all to just be aware that sometimes it's best to go to your staff and ask them what they need from you. And ask them like, hey, I want to be able to provide you the help that you need. I want to be able to make this job as easy as possible for you. What does that look like?
Yes, I definitely, you know, have told them before. I'm like, you know, what kind of support do you need from me? I can be there for you. And sometimes they'll give me some feedback, and then sometimes, oh no, I'm good. I think I'm good. I'm like, okay.
Every week we lead a training every week for new hires. Right. And every week I tell the same thing. You are these kids' personal hype man. If you are their ESPN announcer, whether they're doing art or homework, the way that you hear those commentators constantly, we should hear you constantly, because the same way that you feel, you're walking through the mall and someone's like, oh my gosh, I really like your shoes. That's how those kids are gonna, like, how good that feels when you're like, oh my gosh, that's really cool. Like, you chose those really nice shapes. I love those colors. When they're doing our project, that's how you're making them feel. I've been in a situation like that where some people take that and they're like, got it, that makes sense. And some don't. And so with those ones that don't, you can do those challenges. Hey guys, your challenge today is to figure out like 8 kids' favorite foods. Okay, the next day, okay, a different 8 kids than the ones you've already talked to. I need to know their favorite TV show. Okay, a different 8 kids, I need to know their favorite song. And so when you have to ask these kids these questions, you might feel uncomfortable, but you're slowly going to get used to being like, hey guys, what's your favorite? Hey guys, what's this? And the kids will start opening up and they'll feel a little more comfortable. And at first it's uncomfortable because you're like, I don't want to, like, they seem like they're busy. I don't want to interrupt their conversation. But they gotta get their footing somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. That's a little more eye-opening, a little more like clear mind for me to try something new next week. Well, after next week.
Perfect. All right. I also would love to hear from Danielle, and then Tammy, and then Odyssey. And then there was a couple more comments in the chat, so we'll get to those afterwards. Danielle, you're still on mute, sorry.
There we go. So just to piggyback off of what Chase was saying, I was hearing her say a lot that I tell my staff. And like something that I noticed too, like different learning modalities, like have you ever gone in and modeled the behavior that you want? Do you have a different staff that is stronger at it that you could pair share, have that person go into a classroom and see that person in action, because just telling them to do that in their head, they think that they probably think that they are. The few little times that they're interacting, they're like, done, check. I like, if you're saying it over and over again and nothing or you're not seeing anything happen, their perception of it is probably completely different from what you're actually seeing. So modeling exactly what you like or would like to see, or have someone else model that, would be, I think, very beneficial to your programs, as opposed to just kind of telling them what your expectation is. Show them what your expectation is.
I also just want to highlight one thing in there. I think sometimes we get so caught up in, well, I'm telling them, I'm trying to show them, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time to model it. I don't have the time to do this. This is where that delegation piece comes in as well. Highlight another staff who's really good at it. Highlight another staff who can do this, and say, hey, I would love to have you, your groups go together for this activity so you can see how they do this, or so you can see how they do that. And then delegate. But again, that does both delegate and empowers your staff, right? You're empowering that one staff who's great at something, but you're also delegating a task for yourself where you would be coaching or working in that area.
Just to add one more thing too, something that popped up in our breakout session was, I used my toddlers as my analogy, which I didn't want to, diminish my staff or anything like that. But right now we're in the thick of learning how to tie our shoes. It would be so much easier for me to just continually tie his shoe right now. It takes twice as much effort to give him the power to do it himself. But if you constantly saying, I don't have time to do this, if you're saying every single Monday, you're having the same conversation, think of the time you'd save if you could check that off your list and move on to something else. So take the extra time to make sure that they've got it. So then it's not something that you're revisiting every single week, like the shoes.
It's great that you actually said that, because I've actually been trying to like plan out my time. I'm like, okay, so when can I go and go show and facilitate so they can see an example of what it looks like to actually engage and be very interested, and you make sure your students know that you're interested in their lives. I've been trying to make that time, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm like, they're saying everything I've been thinking about. And I was like, oh my God, I was like, I have to make the time, and I've been trying to so hard. I did it once with one person, and now I'm trying to do it with the rest of them. So thank you very much. This was very helpful. Thank you. I really appreciate this.
Good. Tammy, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly everything Danielle said. That's why I had to raise my hand. But we model in the program. So we do the side-by-side coaching, but also as the site leads, they model the behavior so that staff are aware, because we will have to keep in mind, again, those learning, the different learning styles that our staff have. And then also pairing them with a teammate. So maybe for the day or for the week that, two groups kind of merge. That way they're able to build off of one another if someone is really good at that, as a demo to them. And then also training the trainer. So building off of our staff strengths, who's good at what. And that goes back to the delegation piece, so that, okay, Tammy's going to be in charge of modeling, lesson plan delivery, Peter, you're going to be in charge of, how to do a communal closing or a communal opening and what that looks like, how to keep the students engaged, things like that. And then also rotating job responsibilities. So that's a way for everyone to learn what everybody does, because they're seeing what the site leads are doing, and we know that your guys' plate's full. So staff should be aware of how to complete paperwork to assist with that, if possible in the future, or how to, anything from programmatic front end of what's going on with the children to also the back end and all the paperwork and files and things like that. So just being mindful so that even if they're not good at it, they still know how to do it in case one day they need to, then we know. And it kind of pushes them out of their comfort zone a little bit too, so that it makes them have to be good at it, because now they have to go and train somebody else on how to do it.
Yeah, I know that's a great answer. And you hit something that Jasmine's going to cover in just a minute and that's a great point of everybody needs to know everything, not just one person does one thing and one person does another thing and one person does another thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. I want to make sure we get to these questions before we have to move on. So Odyssey, if you want to go ahead and share.
I just had a comment. I think also, how can I say it? The lack of workshops. So back in the day, I don't know if I'm the only one here, we had a lot of workshops for our staff, you know, with different activities, behavior, like them in person. Of course, COVID hit. And I feel that coming from a leader, like, oh, I went to this training and so they're not going to grasp it as well. And I feel like that's what my staff is missing, going into training, workshops, getting the one-on-one experience or group experience. Or because back then they would, hey, I went to this training. Can you order this for us? Or, hey, I really want to start this club. Can you order this for us? Oh, I learned at this. And then we would split, you know, we wouldn't go to the same workshops. And I feel like because of COVID, like that changed so much. And I think our staff would really be more like open, like, oh, you know, they're doing this. This is another workshop. Then us as leaders, like they send us to a training and, okay, go tell your staff. It is very different. Yeah, we can sit down and talk and all that, but I feel like they need that motivation, you know, when they go to a behavior workshop, when they go to arts and crafts, hands-on, SEL, not just a leader, because it's way different. And I feel like we're missing that again. You know, we need to go back to hopefully slowly back in person, because it does make a difference. This is my 7th year in the program, and I can totally see the difference when we were in person to now how our staff is. Like, we don't get our staff sent to train that much. And if it's training, it's like a mandatory one. Like we have to go because we have to go. So it would be nice to, you know, kind of send our staff like out to more workshops or more in-person workshops where they can see it instead of, you know, me sitting down and like, okay, let me tell you what I learned, you know? So I hear a lot of the same thing with Tammy and Danielle. Like I went straight to a leader, but I would do both the teacher work too. So I kind of got both of them, but I'm hoping that later on we can do in person. Like this would be great in person instead of Zoom. So just wanted to comment on that.
No, I get it. One of the things that, and not to put more on your plates, right, that you can do is if you have other organizations that you work with, if you have other sites that you can get with, to put together your own workshops. Facilitation workshops have always been one of the most popular ones that get requested. Can you come out? I'm gonna do an art project. Your staff are gonna be like the kids, and I'm gonna model exactly how it's gonna go for them.
Yeah.
But back in the day, we putting together those workshops with other people. Hey, we're really great at this. Hey, you're really great at this. Yeah. Maybe there's only 3 trainings that happen throughout the entire day, but seeing what we can do or hopefully networking through this symposium will give us some extra resources to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Christian and Brianna, we have a couple more minutes to answer questions before we go on to the next thing. So if you all have some quick things.
Sure, I'll be super quick. I wanted to mention something that was mentioned earlier about energy and how staff bring that energy. And something that I go over with staff, especially new staff, is the idea of somatic resonance. You resonate with the energy that is around you, and that energy that you provide to the students is reflected back to you. And something specific that I talk to them about, it's not the quantity of energy, it's the quality. So I have one staff member who it seems like she goes around the sun every day and brings energy back with her. It's magic. And her kids love her for it. And I have another staff member who is quiet and focused, but her kids would revolt if I thought about moving her. It's that quality of the energy, not the quantity. And then the other thing I talk to them about is the primacy effect. That first moment that you interact with a student, that's what's going to stick in their heads really strongly. So when I talk to new staff. I talk to them really before you interact with students, whether it's 5 minutes before the beginning of the day or whether it's like while you're training at a different site. Think about how you want to appear to your students in that first moment, because it's hard to change that first. And then the final thing I wanted to say is to support the idea of helping staff break out of their shells and things. Simple things like sentence stems are really useful, because sometimes it is really hard in those moments to think, what do I say? And I think you addressed this a little bit, Jasmine, but giving them tools like these are specific scripts that you can say to start that conversation. All the kids at my program know if they look like they're sad, I'm going to walk up to them and say the exact words, hey, are you okay? Oh, are you sure? Well, if you change your mind, I'm right here to talk to you. It's something simple. It's locked into my head like nobody's business. My kids all know it because they know, oh, I must look sad. I should probably talk to somebody. Just having those little like scripts or sentence stems that you can give them and like, hey, here's something you can use. Put it on your clipboard, look down at it when you're in that panic moment and you don't know, what do I say in this moment? It can be really useful and helpful, especially for new staff.
Yeah, that's a great tool.
That's really helpful for young staff too. Like those fresh out of high school kids, the age gap between who they're taking care of and them is not that great. Having a structured script is sometimes crucial.
Yeah. And then Brianna, I see your hand up.
Hi, so sorry. So I think I am really struggling with the idea of keeping the staff motivated due to the fact that sometimes we all started new. This is our first school year, all of us together. So it was really hard for me because I started as a leader, then I switched to a youth specialist. And I think what I struggle with the most is possibly, I wish that they would have had more hands-on training. And, you know, some of them, it's their first time working with children, which is a little challenging because, you know, I feel as if they're really good with the kids, but in terms of like lesson plans and stuff like that, I haven't found a way to keep them motivated to keep doing those. And I feel as if there's not enough time in the day for them to even do those lesson plans, because sometimes the kids have a really hard time with their homework. So they need a lot of, you know, one-on-one, and they do like to play outside. So it's just hard to keep them engaged during the classroom setting.
With lesson planning, I know it sounds a little crazy, and I'm a little crazy, so that's okay. Utilize those breaks. Utilize winter break, utilize spring break, utilize fall break, and get as much lesson planning done as you can. Find things that you think are cool, get them together, get those materials sent out. Take advantage of that. Take advantage of the end of summer before you come back to school, maybe those week or two, hopefully like at least like a couple days to get them prepared. It seems like a lot to be like, hey, give me like 3 months worth of lesson plans. I don't need everything perfect. I just need you to know what it is you want to do and how you want to do it with the kids so we can put something together and we can put it all in detail later. The same thing with the kids wanting to be outside and move around. Any activity can be hands-on, can be moving, can be up and about. I am anti-worksheet. 110%. These kids have been in school all day. They're going to go home and do some homework. They might get some of it done with us, hopefully, right? If they're doing what they're supposed to. But after 8 hours of being at work, what we want is for you guys to not take your work home anymore. So you also don't want to go home and do more work, but sometimes you feel like you have to. And so your time when you go home and you do those things that you like, that's the same as the kids after school time. And so we want to make sure that they're using that time to move around, to play, to work together, to build something, to look at their interests, to learn something new without realizing they're learning something new. So that'll help get them moving. So we try and utilize some time, a day or two of just, maybe it's 8 hours of like lesson planning. And it sounds crazy, and it is a little bit crazy. But it really helps, really gets the job done.
But I think, I'm so sorry.
No,
but,
I was I was just going to answer the other part of your question in terms of, you know, training and the feeling like they have a lack of training when they come in. I think as you know what your site needs, and you know what your students need, and you know how your students work. So prioritize those things when you first get those staff. If you know, hey, it's okay, we may not get to lesson planning right away. We may not get to this right away. We may not get to this right away. That's okay. Don't prioritize the things and do it daily. Do daily 10-minute workshops. Do daily little things. And you can have your step, like you have something when they first start, you're going to go over all of this stuff with them. I think we tend to overwhelm staff when we first get them. I think we tend to try and throw everything at them all at once because we feel like they need it all. They don't need it all day one. Just give them, each week, we're going to give them a new piece. Each day, we're going to focus on one topic, break it down so that you can then work with them and help them and say, hey, when you first come in, this is what, try not to give them a group of students their first day on campus. Try to allow them to shadow, allow them to see the flow of program, allow them to take some of those things in, and then they can come back, and at the end of the day, you can meet with them and say, okay, hey, how was that for you? Do you have questions? What's going on? Is there anything still out there? And then use them, like ask them what questions they have. And a lot of times where they feel like they need help is the spots where we can then meet them with that training. If they feel like they've got it, especially at the beginning, listen, even if they don't, if they feel like they've got it and they feel comfortable there, don't try and train them in that space. Don't tell them that they're not good at it right away. Let's train them in the spaces where they don't feel comfortable. And then we'll come back to the spot where it's like, hey, I know you think you got this, but we need to work on it a little bit or tweak it a little bit. And I hope that helps a little bit.
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. So one last thing I want to point out, and then we have 5 or 8 minutes left. So we got to jump into those final slides that we have. I've loved the discussion that we've had, but Latoya, I didn't see in the chat earlier, you put a chart of tasks. And I don't know if you want to share anything, but I will say a chart of tasks is a great tool and a great resource, especially for like pre-program checklist, post-program checklist. These are the things I need y'all to do before program. These are the things I need y'all to do after. You are not responsible for prepping their stuff. You are not responsible for cleaning up after them. You are not responsible for putting their stuff away. They are. So you make a checklist of like, hey, these are the things I need you to do when you get here. These are the things I need you to do before you leave. And you don't have to like babysit them and check their checklist every time and do all that. But if they have something in front of them that says, hey, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do, then it gives you a way to hold them accountable. And sometimes that's really all we need, is to have it documented and say, hey, this is what I need you to be doing, so that we can get stuff done. With that being said, we are going to share our screen, get to these last 2 topics for you all. And first one is, how do we delegate?
All right, so in order for your delegation to be effective, to be something that isn't an extra stressor on you, it's really important that we delegate in the correct way, right? And first and foremost is training and coaching your staff how to do something correctly. And I want to say that with the way that you do something is not the way that they have to do something. If you give them a list of requirements, hey, for this to be correct, it needs to have A, B, and C done. The way that they get A, B, and C done, as long as it's correct, we have to let that go. I know sometimes you see somebody doing something and you're like, but that's not the way I would do it. And so you want to step in or you want to correct and be like, well, then they can't do it. As long as it gets done the right way, you've got to step away and give them that space, because there's no 2 of us in this room accomplish our daily goals the same. And the majority of us have similar grants. So I know we have similar tasks, right? But we don't do it all the same. And that's okay as long as it gets done right. Right. The other thing to do is to check in and support them. Check in with how it's going. Don't give it to them and be like, I'm never going to ask you about it again. Check in and say like, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything from me? Do you have any questions? And give them the space to say, yeah, I actually have a question about this, or I'm not sure about this. So that when we're giving them that support, we're still empowering them. So we don't take it over and go, oh, well, I'll just do it. Or this is what I normally, like, this is how I normally do it. This is what needs to get done. And then, like I said earlier, setting realistic deadlines. If it's due for me on the 15th of every month, I'm going to ask them to have it done by like the 7th. Because when they give it to me on the 7th, I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I'm not expecting it to be 100% correct. But I do want to have that space to say, hey, I actually need you to go back and work on this part. Or I need you to go back and fix this. And allowing them to fix their own mistakes so that they're still learning. That's part of coaching. That's part of training. And then having them give it back to you. Once they've got that done and they've done it, you're going to rotate it. And the next month, they're going to do something new. And another staff's going to learn how to do that. We have to be careful. I know we can all think of one staff that we're like, I trust them. They're the ones I'm going to go to. If they leave, then what are you going to do? You need to make sure that all your staff are fully prepared to be able to handle any situation. You want to feel like you're able to take time out for yourself, take a vacation. You want to feel like you're able to just get sick, to be honest, and be out and it be okay, and know that things are going to be done and your site's going to be safe and your kids are going to get taken care of, and you're not going to be coughing and trying to figure out how to get your paperwork done, because you can trust your staff to get it done, because you've coached them and you've trained them and you've supported them enough that it can be finished. If you are the only person who knows how to do something, you're the only person who can do it. And if you're the only person who can do something, it's the only thing you're ever going to be allowed to do, right? You want to make sure that you're leaving space for them to grow, that you're taking some things off your plate, so maybe you can go learn something else.
Perfect. And then the last thing that we have for you all is understand that this has benefits, further benefits than what comes to mind initially, right? One of the biggest things that this allows you to do is it allows you to get back into program. It allows you to walk around. It allows you not to be tied down to a desk. It allows you to actually engage with your staff and see what's going on and identify the situations that need to be addressed. It allows for more creativity. This means by engaging your staff and asking them, hey, can you do this task? Can you lead these clubs? What are lessons that you want to do? We don't all think the same way. There are so many ideas that are sitting in the heads of our staff that are being underutilized. Jasmine even said it with our tasks, right? Like they may go in, we may do a task a certain way. They're going to come in and say, hey, we need to do A, B, and C, but we can do it this way, not that way. And you're going to sit there and look at it and be like, wow, why have I not done it that way this whole time? That creativity is going to only ever benefit a program. It's going to benefit your students, it's going to benefit yourself, and it's going to benefit your staff. And that idea of benefiting staff, when we delegate and we give them these tasks and we give them these responsibilities and we make them feel seen and we make them feel important at our sites, they're more likely to stay. And I know that a lot of you shared that staff retention is something that you've struggled with. And trust me, it is something that we see across this field, right? There is no one answer to that problem, but I promise you that if you are making them feel like they are important and they are welcomed and we want them there and we need them there,
And we're invested in their growth as well.
They're going to be much more likely to stay and want to be a part of that team and be a part of that company and have an opportunity to continue to impact lives, because they're going to feel like they're important in that process. But that is all we have for you all today. I am going to put our emails in the chat. And I just want to thank you all. You all brought a really great energy. You all engaged with each other. You all opened up and were vulnerable. And that's all that we can ask for with a discussion-based virtual training like this. But please let us know if you have any other questions, need anything from us. But we really appreciate it. We hope that this was beneficial for you all.
Thank you guys so much. You guys were great.
Yeah, thank you both, Jasmine and Peter, for a fantastic presentation. And as you said, this was an incredibly great audience. This was an incredibly great interactive session. And as we like to say, you know, the answers are usually in the room. Unfortunately, our poor site coordinators are sitting out on an island by themselves, or at least it feels that way, right? But there actually is a group, right, of fellow site coordinators that you can, you know, you get in these things, and the peer sharing is really incredible. And we want you to remember that you are not alone out there. There are folks in the system that care for you, that care about you, that want you to do well. And we're just waiting for you to access, right, the technical assistance and opportunities that you have. So thank you all very much. Again, a great job by our presenters, and an equally great job by this wonderful audience. Hope you all have a great rest of the day and rest of the conference. And I hope to see a bunch of you perhaps Friday and Saturday here in Long Beach. Have a great afternoon. Thank you again.
Yes, and for anyone that will be there in person, Jasmine and I will be there in person as well. We will be doing this presentation in person. I'm not expecting y'all to come to that again, but if you do see us around and you still have more questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask, and we'd love to engage.
All right. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye, y'all. Thank you.
Jasmine, question, did we go to grad school together perchance?
Where did you? No, we didn't, but where did you go?
I went to USD in San Diego.
No.
I thought
I have
knew
a sister, and a lot of people think that we're the same.
Okay, I'm just checking, but okay. Thank you all so much for your presentation today. I really enjoyed it.
Yes,
Thank you.